with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Paris, what do we got up next?
Yeah. So back in 2021, a horrible tragedy occurred on the set of a small Western film called Rust, in which a gun with live ammunition somehow got onto the set, leading to the death of the film's cinematographer, Helena Hutchins. One of the individuals charged in the incident was actor Alec Baldwin, who was holding the loaded weapon when it killed Hutchins. But on Friday, the judge in this case dismissed all charges against Baldwin, ending the criminal proceeding. John, why exactly do you think the judge in this case threw out the charges?
Aside from the fact that he never should have been charged in the first place. I mean, again, this to me is like has been a completely ridiculous thing. Now, listen, there was negligence. Somebody needed to be held accountable, and the right person was held accountable. The armorer, the persons whose job it was to inspect the guns, make sure they were completely safe, and announce that they were cold. In other words, announce that they were safe. And then the first assistant director, whose first responsibility is on-set safety, is also supposed to verify that the gun is cold and announce to the director, the cinematographer, and the actor that it's a cold gun. It's completely safe. The reason the director never felt the need to go and inspect the gun coming onto his set was because the armorer and the assistant director said it was cold. The reason the actor, who is not a weapons expert, and by the way, once a weapons expert examines a gun, it is not an actor's place to reopen the gun, because once you start doing that, once you start fiddling with the gun, a lot of things can go wrong. It's not the actor's place to do that. As a matter of fact, you guys remember back when The Crow was being filmed? And of course, the tragedy that happened there as Brandon Lee got shot with something that was left inside the gun that, had it been properly inspected, wouldn't have been there, and he died. The actor who fired that gun was an actor by the name of Michael Massey, who I believe passed away just a couple of years ago. Guess what? They never charged Michael Massey. Why? Because the district attorney at the time, well, number one, Michael Massey was a no-name actor at that time, and the district attorney at the time said it was ruled a complete accident and that it is not the actor's responsibility to inspect the weapon. And if this was any other no-name actor not named Alec Baldwin, there wouldn't have been charges. But that's all aside. That's not why Judge Summer dismissed the case. Now, I've been reading online some people saying that Alec Baldwin's case got thrown out because of a technicality. No, it did not get thrown out because of a technicality. Something so ridiculous happened that it's stranger than fiction. Here's what Judge Summer basically ruled. This is why it was dismissed. In trials, it was established in 1963, this thing called the Brady Rule. Now, the Brady Rule has nothing to do with the GOAT, Tom Brady, totally different.
Or the bunch.
Or the bunch, which was around 1963, wasn't it? Something like that. And basically what this rule said was that prosecutors are required to disclose material evidence that is favorable to the defense in a criminal case. Now, this had to be codified back in 1963 because before then, arguments were made. It's like if the prosecutors found evidence, like let's say Paris was being charged with, I don't know, stealing the Mona Lisa or something like that.
Dang.
And I'm the prosecutor. And I find out that, I don't know, I find out that the person who was the witness saying that they saw Paris stealing it was actually unconscious at the time that he claims that happened. Well, I, as the prosecutor at that time, could just go, well, if the defense doesn't find this out on their own, that's on them. It's not my job to tell them what evidence I found. In 1963, the Supreme Court said, yes, it is. So there's this thing called the Brady Rule that just basically says if prosecution comes into possession of evidence, that has to be disclosed to the court and to defense. Well, here's the thing. Judge Summer ruled that this was violated. Now, for there to be a Brady violation, it's a very important thing because a Brady violation basically means a case gets tossed out. And for them to do something that extreme, for a Brady violation to be ruled, 3 very strict criteria must be proved. This is what Judge Summer said in court. Number one, it has to be proved that the prosecution suppressed evidence. This, the judge said, was obviously true. As a matter of fact, so what happened was the big question everybody had, everybody who thought Alec Baldwin was guilty, everybody who thought Alec Baldwin was innocent, everybody, the big question everybody had when this tragedy happened was how the actual F did live rounds of ammunition even get on the set of a movie, let alone into that gun? That's the question everybody asked. That's what we were all asked. Well, turns out ammunition that was a match for the bullet that fired and killed the cinematographer was found and turned into the police. And you know what the prosecution did? Told the police to file it under a different case number so the defense wouldn't find it. They literally filed it under a completely different case number with the intention so the defense wouldn't find out about it. So the judge ruled this is a clear situation where the first thing that needs to be met for a Brady violation, that the prosecution suppressed evidence, is clear. So point one, verified. The second thing that has to be established for a Brady violation is that the evidence suppressed was beneficial to the defense and potentially exculpatory in nature. Now, what do they mean by exculpatory in nature? What that basically means, evidence that's exculpatory in nature basically is this evidence on its own could very well prove the defense's case, right? So it's like if the prosecution found a can of soup in the trunk of somebody's car that has absolutely nothing to do with the case whatsoever, then, it isn't a Brady violation if the prosecution doesn't happen to mention, oh, and amongst all this other stuff, we also found a can of soup. Because the can of soup had nothing to do with anything. It was completely unrelated, had nothing to do with nothing. Then that wouldn't be a Brady violation. In this case, when everybody is asking the question, how on earth did a live round get onto the set and into a gun, the judge ruled that, hey, I don't know, finding the matching ammunition is pretty important. That is suppressed evidence that was, the judge ruled, highly potential to be exculpatory evidence. So, number one, that the prosecution suppressed evidence, check, for a Brady violation. Number two, that the evidence suppressed was beneficial to the defense, check. The third thing that has to be proved for a Brady violation to become in effect is the evidence is material to the proceeding and or possibly affect the outcome of the proceeding. The judge, in this case, Judge Summer, ruled, yeah, absolutely. Finding the bullets that match the bullet that shot and killed the cinematographer is absolutely material to this case and very well could completely affect the outcome of the case. So, number one, the prosecution purposefully hid the evidence. Number two, the evidence that was suppressed would have been beneficial to the defendant and possibly exculpatory. And number three, the evidence was absolutely material to the case. And by the way, according to the defense that got read in the statements, this was the fourth time the prosecution hid evidence. Everything that the defense says, from audio recordings of interviews to other physical evidence, it was the fourth time they did it. So basically, you had a case that never should have been brought, and a prosecution that knew they had no chance of winning because there's no jury in the world that was going to find Alec Baldwin guilty of this. Any common sense thing knows that he's not guilty of anything. He might be held financially culpable. Like there might be a civil case in which there might have to be some money that changes hands. There's civil liability. That could happen because he's a producer on the movie. And as I mentioned in Open Mic this weekend, hey, if one customer spills some apple juice on the floor in Walmart and another customer comes walking down, slips and hurt themselves, Walmart's not criminally liable for anything, but they could be civilly liable. So there could be a civil case still after this, but that's not the point here. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Gametime. My wife Ann and I love going to events, whether they're comedy shows, concerts, an LA Lakers game. I mean, just the other night we went to go see Ronnie Chang and it was awesome. We love having these new experiences and new memories. And our sponsor Gametime makes getting tickets for concerts and events faster and easier, even if you don't buy tickets right away. Because prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer you get to the show start time. With killer last minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying event tickets. I couldn't believe how easy and most importantly, intuitively, the entire app works. Finding the event I was looking for couldn't have been easier. The way it lays out the map of the venue, letting you know exactly where the seats are that you're looking for, and how easy the process was to choose and buy those tickets. So don't worry if you think you're too late to get tickets to that big event you and your friend want to go to. They have last minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever. So guys, take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code Campea for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CAMPEA, C-A-M-P-E-A, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So you had a case that never should have been brought, and the prosecution doing it knowing that they would never win, and then trying to get a famous actor as a head on their wall, broke almost every rule they could, even having the bullets filed in a police report under a different case number, specifically so the defense couldn't find it. It's just a laughable ending to a tragic thing. Now, as I mentioned in open mic this week, this does end all the criminal proceedings. Now, somebody might say, well, could he be charged for this again? Here's the important thing. By dismissing the case as a Brady violation, and this is the important words, with prejudice, the judge dismissed it as a result of a Brady violation with prejudice. With prejudice basically means it's over. Can't be tried again. It's done. So we all know that the armorer was tried and found guilty, is now currently serving time. By the way, the lawyer for that armorer is now saying he might want to have her conviction overturned because the prosecution's been hiding evidence. But whether that happens or not, the assistant director was given a plea deal. So the assistant director's not getting any time. So that's done. And now Alec Baldwin's case has been dismissed with prejudice. And so this is done. I still want to point out, though, that in the midst of all the circus of, what a wild story this has been. And at the heart of it, a young woman lost her life. And there's a lot of questions to be asked. For example, movie set protocol is that if there is a scene where a gun is required to be, even a fake gun is required to be pointed at a camera, for that shot, that camera shot, that the monitor and the cinematographer is supposed to be moved away. That didn't happen. The assistant director was supposed to do this. The armorer was supposed to do this. This was the thing where there were 1,000 points of fault. Mm-hmm. But it's just tragic this happened. Now, whether or not the movie ever actually comes out, I don't know. The Helena's widower came on as a producer last year, because this was a project Helena was passionate about, and he kind of thinks she would want the movie to come out. So I don't know what's going to happen after that. But as far as everything else goes right now, the criminal proceedings of the Rust stuff that's going on, getting close to 3 years, is now over. It's now done.
Do you think this was is it possible that they were actually gunning for Alec Baldwin, or was it could have been any big Hollywood name and they would have wanted them? It just seems so crazy to me. I was a bit naive when this first came out that anyone would see him as guilty. I just thought everyone would be like, oh man, this is such a sucky situation. But now with this new evidence and this new information, I wonder, is it an attack, like a personal attack on Alec Baldwin?
It did look like that at first, because there was everybody knows Alec Baldwin is pretty well known for taking shots at Donald Trump and stuff like that.
Political.
And initially, when the charges were first being filed, someone who's not even a state prosecutor, rather a Republican member of state Senate, specifically requested to be the special prosecutor of the case. which obviously was very politically motivated. But they got replaced. So I think it really became more of a wanting to go after a celebrity rather than going after Alec Baldwin specific. I think the first time around with the first prosecutor, it was wanting to get Alec Baldwin. With the second one, I'm not convinced of that. I think maybe it was just going after a celebrity. And listen, also, it's prosecutors' job to pursue charges against anybody that they think may have been responsible. And then it's up to the court to determine if there was culpability or not, right? So I don't really hold too much against the prosecutor's office, except that, I mean, I don't think any jury in the world would have ever found him guilty of this. So anyway, this whole thing is now get put to rest, other than the fact that there may still be civil cases, but none of that involves criminality. None of that involves jail time or anything like that. So it looks like this will be the final chapter of a very, very sad, sad story. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What did you make of all this? Do you think maybe the prosecutor should be charged for this sort of thing? That's kind of up in the air right now because the judge laid into the prosecutor pretty heavy. Anyway, whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.